Jai-Ho Park stood in front of the mirror, fixing his dark blue uniform one last time. Today was the most important day in human history. As Earth's chosen representative, he would present humanity's case to join the Galactic Council. The space station where the council met was huge. It looked like a giant silver wheel floating in space. Through the large windows, Jai-Ho could see hundreds of spaceships from different alien worlds. Each one was unique. Some were smooth like water drops. Others were sharp like arrowheads. "Representative Park, they're ready for you," said his assistant through the communication device. Jai-Ho took a deep breath and walked into the grand meeting hall. The room was circular, with tall seats rising up like a theater. Aliens of all shapes and sizes sat in these seats. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few even glowed. In the center was a small platform where speakers stood. That's where Jai-Ho needed to go. The head of the council, a tall being with gray skin named HFY, looked down at Jai-Ho. Earth's representative may now present their case for council membership. Jai-Ho stepped onto the platform. His voice was clear and strong as he began. "Honored council members, Earth comes before you as a united world. In the past 100 years, we have ended our major conflicts, cleaned our environment, and reached the stars. We have met council standards for technology, peace, and cultural development." He showed them images of Earth's cities, where clean energy powered everything. He showed them Earth's space colonies on Mars and Venus. He showed them how humans had helped 3 different alien species they'd met, without asking for anything in return. "We asked to join the council not for power, but for partnership. Earth wants to learn from the galaxy's older civilizations and share what we know," Jai-Ho finished. The council members talked among themselves. Jai-Ho waited patiently, but he noticed something strange. Many council members were shaking their heads or making gestures that looked negative. HFY raised his hand for silence. "We have reviewed Earth's application carefully. We acknowledge your technological progress. However, we have concerns." Jai-Ho's heart sank. He knew that tone of voice, even from an alien. "Humans are too unpredictable," said a council member with tentacles. "They advance too quickly. 100 years ago, they barely had flying machines. Now they have faster-than-light travel." Another member, covered in blue feathers, added, "Their emotions are too strong. They feel too deeply. This makes them dangerous." "They change their minds too often," said a third member. "How can we trust a species that rewrites its own rules every few generations?" Jai-Ho tried to speak. "We change because we learn. We feel deeply because we care deeply. Our speed of progress shows our dedication to improvement." But HFY raised his hand again. "The council has voted. Earth's application for membership is denied. Furthermore, Earth is banned from reapplying for 100 years. This meeting is finished." The room emptied quickly. Jai-Ho stood alone on the platform, his hands tight at his sides. He had failed. Earth had failed. Or had they? On his way back to his ship, Jai-Ho passed a window. He stopped and looked out at the stars. Then he smiled. The council thought they were rejecting Earth, but maybe they were doing something else. Maybe they were setting Earth free. He took out his communication device and called Earth's president. "Madam President, they rejected us. But I have an idea. The council has shown us exactly who they are. Afraid of change, afraid of progress, afraid of difference. So let's show them who we are." "What do you suggest?" the president asked. "They won't let us join their council. Fine. Let's build something better, something new, something that isn't afraid of change or progress. The galaxy is big, and the council doesn't control all of it. Not yet." There was a pause. Then the president laughed. "Jai-Ho, I like how you think. Come home. We have work to do." As his ship left the council station, Jai-Ho looked back one last time. The council thought this was an ending. They were wrong. This was just the beginning. 5 years had passed since Earth's rejection from the Galactic Council. In her laboratory at the Seoul Space Research Center, Dr. Ha-Won Kim stared at her computer screen. The numbers were correct. She had checked them 20 times. "Run the simulation again," she told her computer. The screen lit up with a model of a spaceship. As she watched, the ship seemed to fold space around itself, moving faster than light in a completely new way. The Council's faster-than-light drives worked by pushing ships through space. Ha-Won's design pulled space itself, like folding a piece of paper to bring 2 points together. It used half the energy and worked twice as fast. She pressed the communication button on her desk. "Sunwoo, you need to see this." 10 minutes later, military strategic advisor Sunwoo Lee walked into her laboratory. He had been studying Council technology for years, looking for ways to protect Earth if the aliens ever turned hostile. "What am I looking at, Ha-Won?" he asked, watching the simulation. "A better way to travel through space," she said. She explained her discovery using simple terms. "The Council's ships are like boats pushing through water. My design is like building a tunnel through space itself." Sunwoo watched the simulation 3 times. Then he smiled. "Do you know what this means?" "It means we can build better ships," Ha-Won said. "No," Sunwoo replied. "It means we don't need the Council anymore." That evening, they presented their findings to Earth's united government. The meeting room was full of leaders from every continent. President Chen watched the simulation with great interest. "Can we build this?" she asked. Ha-Won nodded. "We have the materials. We have the technology. We can start building test ships within 6 months." "The Council won't like it," someone said from the back of the room. Sunwoo stood up. "The Council banned us from joining them. They never banned us from moving forward on our own." He walked to the front of the room. "Think about it. The Council controls space travel because everyone uses their technology. But what if we had something better? Other species might want our technology instead of the Council's," the president said slowly. "Exactly," Sunwoo replied. "And I bet we're not the only ones the Council has rejected." The president looked around the room. All in favor of funding Dr. Kim's project. Every hand went up. 3 months later, Ha-Won watched as workers built the first test ship. It was small, just big enough for 2 pilots. Its smooth silver hull reflected the morning sun. "We're ahead of schedule," she told Sunwoo, who stood beside her. "The computer models all show success. The Council thinks they limited us by rejecting us," Sunwoo said. "But they just pushed us to be better." "Do you think there are others out there?" Ha-Won asked. "Other species the Council rejected?" "Probably. And once we prove this works, we're going to find them." The first test flight was scheduled for dawn the next day. As the sun set, Ha-Won stayed in her laboratory, checking everything one final time. On her screen, she could see the Council's space lanes, the approved routes all ships had to follow. Her ships wouldn't need those lanes. They could go anywhere. She thought about what Sunwoo had said about finding others. The Council thought they controlled space travel. They thought they controlled who could join their club. But tomorrow, everything would change. As she walked home that night, Ha-Won looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other civilizations were probably looking up too, wishing they could travel freely among those stars. "Just wait," she whispered to those unknown friends. "We're coming to find you." Captain Myra Song stood on the bridge of the Earth ship New Horizon, watching a small planet through the main window. The planet looked like a blue and green marble, much like Earth. But this world was far beyond Council space, in an area marked as unexplored on their maps. "Life signs confirmed," her science officer reported. "They have cities. Technology level suggests early space age development." Mireille nodded. In the years since Earth had perfected its new faster-than-light drive, they had explored further than any Council ship had ever gone. This was their 5th discovered civilization. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface." The main screen lit up. The alien that appeared looked almost like a tall deer standing on two legs, with soft brown fur and large eyes. It spoke, and their translation computers quickly converted the words. Unknown vessel. This is Port Authority Cantal. Please identify yourself. Myre stepped forward. This is Captain Mira's song of the Earth ship New Horizon. We come in peace and friendship. The alien's ears twitched. Earth? We have not heard of Earth. Are you from the Council? No, Myre replied. Earth is independent. There was a long pause. Then Cantal spoke again, but his voice was different, worried. Please, if you are truly not from the Council, we need help. Myre leaned forward. What's wrong? Council merchants came 6 months ago. They said they would trade with us, but they took control of our spaceports. They demand high payments for basic supplies. We cannot refuse them. They have Council authority. Myre looked at her crew. They all knew what Council authority meant. It meant the merchants could do whatever they wanted, and the Council would support them. May we land? Myre asked. I think we should talk in person. 2 hours later, Myre sat in a meeting room with Cantal and other leaders of his people, who called themselves the Varani. The room was filled with beautiful plant life, showing the Varani's love of nature. The Council merchants charge us 10 times normal prices, one leader explained. They say it is because we are not Council members. But when we asked to join the Council, they said we were too primitive. Myre smiled. The Council said the same thing to Earth, but we found another way. She activated a small projector, showing images of Earth's colonies and trading partners. We built our own network of friends, freed from Council control. The Varani leaders looked at each other. Cantal spoke first. You would trade with us fairly, even though we are not Council members. Especially because you're not Council members, Myre replied. Earth believes in fair trade and mutual respect. We don't need the Council's permission to work together. But the merchants have Council ships protecting them, another leader said. Myre's smile grew wider. Our ships are faster and more advanced than Council ships. If these merchants try to stop fair trade, they'll find themselves outmatched. For the first time, the Varani leaders looked hopeful. Cantal stood up. Captain Song, I believe this is the beginning of a valuable friendship. That evening, as Myre prepared to return to her ship, she sent a message to Earth Command. First contact successful. The Varani wish to join our trading network, and they know of 3 other civilizations nearby who might be interested too. She looked at the beautiful Varani city through her window. The Council thought they controlled all space trade. They were wrong. One rejected civilization at a time. Earth was building something new, something better. And this was just the beginning. Diplomatic officer Ta-Jin Cho sat in his office on Earth's primary space station, reviewing reports from across what people now called the Shadow Network. 3 years had passed since their first contact with the Varani, and everything had changed. On his large display screen, he watched ships from 20 different species dock at the station. Some brought rare metals, others carried advanced technology. All of them were species the Council had either rejected or ignored. His computer chimed. Message from the Varani trading fleet, his assistant announced. Ta-Jin opened the message. The Varani ships had found another civilization, the Myrax, who needed help. The Council had demanded extremely high fees for trading rights. The Myrax couldn't pay, so they remained isolated. Another opportunity, Ta-Jin said to himself. He pressed a button on his desk. Please schedule a meeting with Earth Command. Priority level, high. Later that day, Ta-Jin presented his plan to Earth's leaders. The meeting room was filled with officials from Earth and representatives from their allied species. The Myrax have excellent manufacturing capabilities, Ta-Jin explained. They can't afford Council trade fees, but they could be valuable partners in our network. What do they need? Asked the Earth President. Basic trading rights, fair prices for necessary supplies. The same things we all needed when the council rejected us. A Varani representative stood up. The Varani people will support this. We remember when Earth helped us. One by one, other representatives offered support. Each remembered how Earth had helped them break free from council control. Tajin smiled. This was why the Shadow Network worked so well. Every member helped new partners because they remembered being helped themselves. There's more, Tajin continued. The Myrax have told us about 5 other civilizations in their region. All of them are struggling under council restrictions. The room grew quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. Their network was growing faster than anyone had expected. The council won't be able to ignore us much longer, someone said. Good, Tajin replied. Let them see what we've built. A trading network based on fairness and respect, not power and control. That evening, Tajin worked late in his office. On his screen, he marked the position of every Shadow Network member. The display looked like a beautiful web of connections spreading across the galaxy. His computer chimed again. This time, it was a message from a council world. Someone there wanted to talk about joining the Shadow Network secretly. Tajin laughed softly. The council thought their ban would keep Earth isolated. Instead, it had helped Earth create something revolutionary. He looked out his window at the busy space station. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved smoothly through space. Species that the council had called primitive worked together, traded together, grew together. The Shadow Network, he said quietly, where everyone has value and no one stands alone. He began writing his response to the council world's message. Soon, very soon, the council would have to face the truth. They weren't in control anymore. A new power had risen in the galaxy. And it all started because they had banned Earth. Administrator Yuna Kang walked through the grand halls of the new Stellar Concordat headquarters on Earth's moon. The year was 2200, and the collection of worlds that had started as the Shadow Network had grown into something much bigger. Through the crystal-clear windows, she could see Earth shining like a blue jewel. Hundreds of ships moved between Earth and the moon, carrying representatives from over 300 worlds. Today was important. The Stellar Concordat would officially become a new form of government, different from the Council's strict control. Yuna had worked for 2 years to create this system. She entered the main assembly hall. Representatives from all member worlds sat in comfortable seats arranged in circles. Unlike the Council's towering seats that looked down on speakers, everyone here sat at the same level. It was a small detail, but it showed how different the Concordat was. The assembly will now begin, Yuna announced. Her voice was calm but strong. Today, we make official what we have built together. She activated the large display screen. It showed the Concordat's simple rules. All member worlds keep their independence. Each world has an equal vote. No world can force rules on another. We work together, we trade together, we grow together. The room was quiet as she continued. The Council thought they could control the galaxy by keeping worlds separate and dependent. We prove them wrong every day. A representative from the Varani stood up. When Earth found us, we were being crushed by Council merchants. Now our people travel the stars freely. We support the Concordat. More representatives stood, each telling their story. Some had been rejected by the Council. Others had been too poor to pay council fees. Now they were all equal partners. The Council's power is shrinking, Yuna said. Last month, 3 council worlds asked to join us secretly. They see that our way works better. She showed them the latest maps. The Concordat's territory now covered nearly a quarter of the galaxy. Their ships were faster, their trade was fairer, and their people were happier. But we face a choice, she continued. We can keep growing quietly, or we can show the Council who we are, what we have become. The assembly talked for hours. Some wanted to stay hidden. Others wanted to challenge the Council openly. Finally, they voted. It is decided, Yuna announced. We will send representatives to the Council, not to ask for membership, but to offer it to them. The room filled with cheers. Yuna smiled as she watched the celebration. The council had banned Earth because they thought humans were unpredictable and dangerous. They were right about one thing: humans were unpredictable. Instead of fighting the council, Earth had built something better. Instead of demanding power, they had shared it. Instead of controlling others, they had lifted them up. That evening, Yuna stood at the window again, looking at Earth. Somewhere out there, the council was about to learn a very important lesson. Sometimes, the ones you reject become stronger than you ever imagined. The stellar concordat was rising, and the galaxy would never be the same. Fleet Admiral Do-hyun Choi stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Unity. Behind his ship, 5,000 vessels from the stellar concordat waited in perfect formation. Each ship carried the flags of both their home world and the concordat. The council had demanded a meeting after learning about the concordat's size. They chose deep space for this meeting, halfway between council space and concordat territory. Council ships approaching, his officer reported. 10,000 vessels. Do-hyun nodded calmly. The council always tried to show power through numbers. But numbers weren't everything. The council ships appeared from light speed. They were impressive, stretching across space like a wall of metal. The council's message was clear: "We are stronger than you." "They're hailing us," said the communications officer. The main screen lit up. Archanval, still the head of the council after all these years, looked down at them. "This is an illegal gathering," he said. "The council did not approve these ships or this organization you call the Concordat." Do-hyun stepped forward. "The council's approval was not required, Archanval. We are independent worlds making our own choices." Earth was banned from council activities. Archanval said sharply, "You have broken that ban." "No," Do-hyun replied. "We followed your rules exactly. We didn't join the council. We didn't try to enter council space. We simply built something better." He pressed a button, and the screen split to show hundreds of worlds that were part of the Concordat. These worlds chose to join us. We didn't force them. We didn't demand high fees. We offered friendship and fair trade. "This must end," Archanval declared. "The council cannot allow a rival power." Do-hyun smiled. "Look at your own worlds, Archan. Check your trade reports. How many council worlds are already trading secretly with the Concordat? How many are thinking of joining us?" The Archan's face showed surprise. He hadn't known. "Our ships are faster than yours," Do-hyun continued. "Our technology is more advanced. Our people are more prosperous. And we achieved all this because you rejected us." He looked directly at the Archan. "You can threaten us with your ships. You can try to stop us with your rules. But ask yourself, what happens if you fail? What happens when the galaxy sees the council fail?" The Archan was quiet for a long time. Around him, other council members whispered urgently. "What do you want?" The Archan finally asked. "The same thing we wanted 40 years ago," Do-hyun replied. "A chance to make the galaxy better. But this time, we're not asking for permission. We're offering you a choice. Work with us to create something new, or watch your power fade as more worlds join us." The council ships hung in space, their weapons still ready. But Do-hyun knew they wouldn't fire. The council's power came from fear and control. The Concordat's power came from cooperation and trust. "We will consider your words," the Archan said slowly. "Good," Do-hyun replied. "The Concordat will send representatives to discuss terms. Remember, Archan, we're not here to fight. We're here to build a better future for everyone." As the council ships turned away, Do-hyun looked at his crew. They had done it. The council had finally seen the truth. The species they had rejected had become stronger than they ever imagined. And this was only the beginning. Jeho Park stood in the same council chamber where Earth had been rejected 40 years ago. But everything was different now. The towering seats had been removed. The room was circular, with all seats at the same level. Representatives from both the council and the Concordat sat together. Next to him stood Administrator Yuna Kang. They had worked for 6 months to reach this day, the day when the galaxy would change forever. The Council acknowledges that the old ways must end, Archanval announced. His voice was different now, not commanding, but cooperative. We have seen what the Concordat has built. We have seen how their worlds prosper. Jaiho stepped forward. We are not here to replace the Council's power with our own. We are here to create something new, something that serves all worlds, not just the powerful ones. He activated the room's displays, showing the new system they had designed together. The images showed a galaxy united, not divided, a galaxy where all voices mattered. Under the new system, Yuna explained, every world has a voice. Decisions are made together. Trade is free and fair. Technology is shared, not controlled. No world can dominate another. The room was quiet. For many council members, this was a huge change. They were used to having power over others, but they had seen the truth. The Concordat's worlds were growing stronger, while council worlds were falling behind. What about worlds that are still developing? Asked a council member. The ones we called primitive. They get the same rights as everyone else, Jaiho replied. We help them grow at their own pace. We trade fairly with them. We respect their choices. The Concordat proved this works better than control. One by one, representatives stood to support the new system. Even old council members who had once rejected Earth now saw the wisdom in cooperation. The vote will now begin, Archanval announced. The room felt tense as everyone voted. Jaiho watched the numbers climb on the display. They needed 3/4 of all worlds to agree. The final numbers appeared. 90% had voted yes. The new Galactic Union is now established, Yuna declared. The room erupted in cheers and applause. Later that day, Jaiho stood at a window, looking out at space. He remembered standing in this same spot 40 years ago, after Earth had been rejected. He had been angry then, but also determined. Did you ever imagine this? Yuna asked, joining him at the window. Not exactly, he replied. We wanted to prove the Council wrong. Instead, we proved that there was a better way for everyone. They watched ships from hundreds of worlds moving through space. Council ships and Concordat ships flew together now. There were no more barriers, no more restrictions. The Council thought they were punishing us by banning Earth, Jaiho said. Instead, they freed us to create something better than they could imagine. And now the galaxy is truly united, Yuna added, not through force or fear, but through cooperation and respect. As they turned to leave, Jaiho took one last look at the stars. The Council's rejection had been the best thing that ever happened to Earth. It had forced humanity to find its own path. And that path had led to a better future for everyone.